Hello there and welcome to the Super Kick Mania Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is David Postansky and today we're going to go all out about All Out. Yes, we're going to be reviewing, giving a reaction to and saying some thoughts about AEW's big pay-per-view All Out. Now the question is All Out the AEW equivalent to WrestleMania? Or is that Double or Nothing? Because when you think about it, the first AEW event was Double or Nothing. But without All In 2 years ago, there wouldn't be an All Out. So was it that Double or Nothing was the follow-up to All In, and therefore All Out is the big one? Or is Double or Nothing the big one? Or are they equal by the nature of the duality of the starting and then the true beginning? And which is the true beginning? Anyway, enough of that nonsense. Let's talk about the show. So what a show. What a lineup of matches. What a bunch of results. Lots of fun stuff. Lots of great matches. Lots of a shocking moment or two in there. And yeah, let's run through the matches that were there, and I'll give you some opinions on them, give you some thoughts where I think things are going to be going next. So I've got the Wikipedia article up here just so I can go through it. And first one, it says, I guess this was pre-show. It says Joey Janela with Sonny Kiss defeated Serpentico. I literally don't remember this. I think I kind of had it on in the background then, but sorry, I wasn't paying attention by that point. Private Party against Dark Order, same dealio. First thing I saw was Big Swole against Britt Baker. And yeah, that was a slightly more backstagey brawl cinematic match. It was, it's the tooth and nail match, whatever that meant in advance. It's always interesting nowadays when you get things like an eye for an eye match, a tooth and a nail match. You get like matches where the name of it doesn't really mean a lot. But anyway, so yeah, Big Swole, Britt Baker hadn't been wrestling for a while because of injury, and she then had this brawl just so it could bring her back into it. They were able to perhaps develop character more this way, in a sense, than what they would have done just in a regular match. Big Swole won, and I'm sure she's going to be... Well, in fact, the interesting thing, looking to what she's going to be doing next, she challenged people who's she going to take on next on her Twitter account that I saw today. And I think Thunderosa, who we'll be mentioning in a little while, was quick in there, and so was Chris Cyborg from UFC. And it was funny that Swole was like, I don't really want any of that. And who can blame her? Next up, we had the Young Bucks against the Jurassic Express. Now, that's kind of amazing, surprising, really. It's just in terms of what is the long-term booking that AEW is going for, that they haven't actually had the Young Bucks against FTR, the Revival, as of yet. Now, there's stuff that we'll get into later when we get to FTR's match about why they may not have booked this as of yet, but I don't know. Have they let things cool off on the idea of that match? Should have they gone straight into that match and then they could have another match later, or a long feud? I'm not sure I've been convinced by the FTR Young Bucks feud, just because the rivalry has just been the revivalry, I should say. It's been that they came in, then they helped them, they tagged with them, and then they on to doing other things, really, and so they're going to have to heat up that whole long-awaited feud again. Now, I get the idea that during the pandemic they may not want to have blown that in front of no audience, so maybe that's the smart booking here. But just the idea that we have the Young Bucks against the Jurassic Express in another match. It was a good match, but it was just another Young Bucks versus Jurassic Express match, which we've seen 2, 3 or 4 times before. It was interesting with Matt Jackson, I think, playing a little bit heel against like Marco Stunt on the outside, which was an interesting thing. It's interesting where the Elite have been going. Sometimes they've been tweening a little bit into the heel realm, which yeah, I just don't know what they're doing with that. Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus. People thought Luchasaurus was going to be a main eventer when we first saw him. That he was going to, because he turned up in a Casino Battle Royale, I think, quite possibly either at Double or Nothing or All Out last year, and he quickly got signed. I think it was at Double or Nothing, in fact, and people thought, Luchasaurus, and people have been chanting for Luchasaurus to be a main eventer, and they haven't done it. And Jungle Boy, he's a bit skinny, perhaps he needs to, once he's a bit older, he'll fill out a bit more, and he'll look more of a main eventer. But I think people would be on for either of them going into a singles run, but instead they've just been having good matches, but a slightly underwhelming run as the Jurassic Express. So they lost here against the Young Bucks. This doesn't hurt the Young Bucks. It didn't particularly help them either, being in the opening part of the show here. But anyway, let's move on to the next match. We'll rattle through these. We had Lance Archer last eliminating, as it says here, Eddie Kingston in the Casino Battle Royale. Wow. So the Casino Battle Royale, it's interesting just to see how they've evolved it. It's AEW's version of a Royal Rumble. I like the idea that you draw a card, but people coming in groups of 5, it was interesting because they didn't come in groups of 5. When we saw it before, and suddenly 5 people walk out all together, they're about to be opponents, yet they're walking out 5 at a time. It was a bit awkward. Now they were coming out 1 at a time, so the person who comes in 5th out of the group literally gets a minute or 2 clearance before the others, and that, you might say that's only, a minute, only 2 minutes, but in a Royal Rumble, if someone's coming out the difference between 29th and 30th, they're the fresher man if they come out at number 30. But anyway, so who did we have in it? We had Ray Phoenix. Well, we had everyone. We had Jake Hager, I should say, coming in early. I forget the guy's name that did all right. There was oh my goodness, the big thing with the Casino Battle Royale was the debut, the Joker, Matt Sydal, came in. He gave Sean Spears, who came in and just didn't want to get in the ring, playing good heel tactics there, but he gave him a big knee to the face. He climbs up to the top rope, goes for a shooting star press, completely botches it, and probably gives the worst debut moment since the Shockmaster. He'll get past this, I'm sure. If there was an audience there, they might butcher him forever, and he'll have to live down the GIFs and everything, the clips that we're going to see on Botchamania and so on and so forth, for a long, long time to come. But yeah, Matt Sydal, that wasn't an ideal debut. I think he made it to the final 3, but then he didn't win anyway. Eddie Kingston and Lance Archer were both on the outside for the entire time. They were on the outside at the end. They didn't get back in the ring. They were just on the outside, wrestling back and forth, which is unusual in a Battle Royal, Royal Rumble sort of thing. Normally they'd get back in, because when it came down to the last 2, I think they were on the apron the entire time. There wasn't a sense of them having near eliminations back in the ring. It was all done on the outside. The weird thing, though, was Jake the Snake. Jake the Snake holding up that bag as if he'd got a snake in it to try and scare Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston didn't react to it at all. Jake looked a little bit goofy just holding up this bag, opening it up, as if there was meant to be something scary in there. That bit didn't work for me. Darby Allin got a good reaction. There was only a 15% capacity audience there, but Darby Allin got a nice reaction when he came out. Darby Allin can be a huge star if he's used correctly. Whether he will, though, is such an interesting thing with AEW, just because we've gone from Jericho as the world champion to Jon Moxley as the world champion, and they kind of build up, when Jericho was world champion, Darby Allin, he's a contender, and people thought, oh, but then he didn't win, and he kind of just sunk back down on the card. And then Jon Moxley is world champion, and oh, here comes Darby Allin again, and then he sunk back down on the card. And it's building them up, but then they're not going on to something more important. They're then just kind of floating afterwards. And so it's going to be interesting to see where some of these potentials settle once, a year into the promotion. you'd have thought people would have settled, but it still feels like they're finding their feet with certain things. Like Sean Spears, he obviously attacked Cody Rhodes. He's been managed by Tully Blanchard and done nothing. This was an interesting moment for him, just that he came out and went over to the commentary desk, put on the headphones, did a little bit of speech that gave him a little bit of screen time to maximise those minutes, as good old JR would say. But he didn't then do anything meaningful in the event, so he's been kind of meaningless since he attacked Cody, because he lost that feud, that one match they had, and has been floating ever since. There was a bit where he teased about having a tag partner and people could send in their videos, but then the pandemic hit, and that was kind of the end of that. Whether or not with Tully Blanchard and then the revival, whether there will be any kind of Four Horsemen that he's part of as well, who knows? But he hopefully won't get sidelined if they do a Four Horsemen equivalent in AEW. What else from the Casino Battle Royale? Oh yeah, so Sonny Kiss eliminated Jake Hager. Should have been a huge moment for Sonny, him eliminating Jake Hager like that in a circle. But Jake Hager's someone else that when he first debuted as a surprise at the end of the first episode of Dynamite, everyone was like, oh my god, he's going to be used like their Brock Lesnar, and then he just hasn't been. They just kind of teased him being silent, then they had him speaking, then not speaking, and it's like, why is he silent sometimes and not other times, and Goofy bringing out goats and stuff like this. He had one, again, match with John Muxley where it's like, yep, he's going to be a big deal here, and then he's just sunk back down to the bottom. They need to keep the momentum up with these guys. Having Sonny Kiss eliminate Jake Hager should seem like a big deal, but then they made what is, to me, the biggest mistake WWE make every single year with their Royal Rumbles. They'll have someone get a big elimination and you think, oh my god, this person's about to be made. They're going to be a big star now. And they get instantly eliminated. So Jake Hager gets thrown out by Sonny Kiss, and then instantly, and I can't even remember who threw out Sonny Kiss, but Sonny Kiss was thrown out instantly. And I was like, that's such a shame. That is such a shame. And it may have been Lance Archer, I can't remember. So Lance Archer came in hot, had the challenge for the TNT Championship, had a little bit of the feud with Cody there, and then lost against Cody, didn't win the inaugural championship, the TNT title, went on to do nothing, and it looks like they're heating up Lance Archer again to be a challenger against Muxley, because obviously Lance Archer came in with a lot of fizz against Cody. They haven't obviously made him a challenger against Muxley. Now, I believe, what is it that happened in New Japan? Moxley won the IWGP United States Championship, had to vacate it, I think, because of the staph infection, and then I think Archer had it. Now, did they then have a return match where, well, not a return match, did they then have a match where Moxley got it? Is he still the champion? I forget, in fact. But, you know, this may be Moxley saying, hey, I want to work with Archer. They might have been for some good stuff there. Or it may just be Archer being fed to the wolves again. Because, look, Brian Cage came in, FTW champion, won a casino ladder match, sent against Moxley, and now he's just tag team with Ricky Starks in this Battle Royal, having a decent showing. And it's good when they tease big man versus big man. Not that he's as big as Lance Archer, but he's a big hulking guy. So when you get a standoff between Lance Archer and Brian Cage, that is a moment. If there was an audience there, these moments would feel richer than they did. But it was still good. So I'm excited to see Lance Archer go on to challenge Moxley later on. But I think that Moxley's just going to eat him up, and that will be Lance Archer just floating in the card again. Anyway, next up we saw first of all we saw the Stadium Stampede Stadium, I believe, as Matt Hardy was making his entrance to be chased in a nice callback in the golf cart kind of thing by Sammy Guevara, who chased after him. He missed hitting Hardy. They brawled in the back for a little bit. And then here came the biggest talking point of the entire show. They climbed up on a scissor lift, as they have used in the back there once or twice before. And they were meant to do a spot going through a table. Hardy was going to do a twist of fate. Sammy speared him or pushed him through a table. They both went through a table, but they both kind of overshot the tables. Sammy, being the one doing, let's call it a spear, even if it wasn't a spear, landed more on top, landed a little bit on his side, didn't take too bad a bump, but Matt was meant to go flat back through the table, landed and cracked the back of his head on the concrete, instantly knocked out. You heard Tony Schiavone, you heard Jim Ross just say he's out. I think Schiavone noticed it straight away, or maybe it was JOR. I don't think it was Excalibur, but they were just like, he's out. He's out cold. And this is a last man standing match. A last man standing match. Oh, sorry, it is a last man standing match. They called it a broken rules match. And once again, AEW kind of painted themselves into a silly corner with a wrestler saying, hey, if I don't win this, I retire. Which is exactly what Cody said. If I don't win this world title match against Jericho, I'll never challenge for it again. Then he didn't win. And it's like, well, you made that happen to yourself. Hardy said, if I don't win, I'm going to leave AEW, I'm going to retire, whatever. And then he got knocked out, and it was a broken rules match, which means that Aubrey Edwards, who was the referee, should have instantly started 1, 2, 3, a 10 count. But she didn't. About 40 seconds went past. Sammy didn't look like he knew what to do. Poor Sammy must have been thinking in his head, oh my god, every time I get in the ring with Hardy, I injure him. And how's that going to be held against Sammy? I don't think it was Sammy's fault in this case. It was when he threw the chair a few weeks ago and put 15 stitches into Matt's forehead. But Sammy eventually was, just panicking what to do. He said, start the count. And Aubrey's just 1, 2, and she's checking on Hardy, and eventually kind of half gets up. And it's the thing is, because he couldn't even go for a cover, if Sammy could have gone for a cover, he could have, it would have still looked a bit grim, but he could have forced Hardy to kick out, just make it look like, he did kick out or something. But instead, he couldn't even touch him, and Hardy barely managed to get up. And then Hardy was falling over. One thing, I laughed out loud. Hardy, and this wasn't at all funny at all. Weird sentence. This wasn't funny at all, what happened to Matt, and from the reports of things now, he's doing okay. But the funny thing is, within his dazed and confused state, he did, trying to save himself from crashing, fully grab hold of Sammy Guevara's trunks and sort of made him bare all his backside. Was having a bit of a cheeky moment there, which was the bright comical moment within this. But obviously Matt was not in any state to wrestle. Eventually they rang the bell. The match was called off. The commentators did all of the right things. Jim Ross, Schiavone, Excalibur, saying, no, a guy's life is what's important here. A person's well-being doesn't matter about entertainment, doesn't matter about the match. But within about a minute and a half, they seemed to come to the idea of, oh no, the match can continue. There was an announcement that, we are going to have a winner. And they continued, and Matt looked, my god, he looked dazed and confused. It was so silly. They should have just made up the plan on the spot, and they need to do this in wrestling. They need to have a contingency guy. And by that, I mean one of the agents, one of the bookers, just needs to be on hand, on standby, to say, oh my god, something bad has just happened. This is what we're going to do to quickly get ourselves out of it. Ring the bell or whatever, but if there is a situation where it's if Hardy loses, then we need something to make it so that he doesn't have to leave the company. So what could have they done? They should have had the Young Bucks just run over and start beating up Sammy, and then the commentators could have been like, oh my god, what's this? It's a broken rules match, so anything goes. They're not going to let Matt Hardy be defeated because Matt Hardy was aligned with the Elite. Or if they hadn't have thought of that in time, then they should have just said to Matt, just go grab a chair and hit Sammy over the head with it. And that would be a nice callback to Sammy tried to end your career by throwing a chair at your head. Now you can knock him out with a chair over his head. Sammy will just lay there. It will be a weak chair shot. Matt would know what he's doing enough, and it's not going to put either of them in too much risk. Instead, they just went with plan A, which was climb up scaffolding, and Sammy gets pushed off and crashes through the rampway. And it was crazy, just because clearly Matt was struggling to climb up. He could have fallen. He could have grabbed hold of Sammy. He could have then had an uncontrolled fall. It was dangerous to both guys. Tony Khan said everything he said after about, oh no, Dr. Sampson or whatever said he'd passed the concussion test or whatever, but it was 2 minutes. You don't know what he'd done. He may have had like a bleed on the brain, anything. It was a big, big risk. So, anyway, let's move on to the next match. The next match was probably my favourite match of the card, which was Hikaru Shida against Thunderosa, the current reigning and defending NWA World's Women's Champion. Now, I've been a big fan of NWA since it came back about a year ago. And obviously they've been on hiatus throughout the pandemic, and that's probably why this deal was able to be formed. NWA aren't running shows, so why not let their World Women's Champion wrestle a main event match, for the Women's Championship on All Elite Wrestling. Now, she had a match a week ago on Dynamite, and she won, which gave her some momentum going into this. And my God, did Thunder Rosa dominate this? Like, even with Shida's usual spot where she gets out a chair and then uses it as a launch pad, she put it up, but then Thunder Rosa just ran at it and jumped and dove off of it herself. And the thing that was amazing, seeing Thunder Rosa in a match like this, I haven't seen terribly much of Thunder Rosa outside of NWA Power. And those matches are always quite short. They're always just like 5-minute matches, 8-minute matches. But this was, let's see, how long was this match? 16 minutes 57 long. It was a good time to put on a good match. And she really upped her game. And you could say everyone already knew that she was really good, but she upped her game in terms of her performance at like a high stakes. If this was to her like her audition for why she should get an AEW contract later, she passed it with flying colours, because she just wrestled such a competitive game. She made everything look really convincing. It really looked like she was in control, out wrestling Shida. Shida, did very well, but Thunder Rosa really dominated the match. They actually said on the commentary that this is the first time that Shida's got in control, and within 10 seconds, Shida had won. And now it should have had a tiny bit more back and forth, where then perhaps Thunder Rosa was getting the upper hand, but Shida really struggled to really show her worth as much as Thunder Rosa did in the match. But that isn't to sell Shida short, because that's a tongue twister, to sell Shida short on the seashore or something like that. I've lost my train of thought now. Shouldn't have said that tongue twister. Oh yeah, Shida now has a very credible opponent in the future, and it's not to sell her short, because she came out victorious, which is ultimately what was important, and because she sold everything that Thunder Rosa was doing so well, that made Thunder Rosa look dominant. But Thunder Rosa, my God, everything she was doing, her facial expressions, she was just like, she'd get a move done on her, she'd sit up with a big smile on her face, and to some degree that almost irked me, of like, you're kind of non-selling her moves, but there was something about it where it just looked like, I can still take this. There was a point where Shida got a 1 count and Rosa kicked out. It was just, a really great match. I would call that my personal match of the night. Next up, we had 8-man tag match. Matt Cardona, former Zack Ryder, Scorpio Sky, and Natural Nightmares, Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall, against the Dark Order, Brody Lee, Colt Cabana, Evil Uno, and Stu Grayson. It was alright match for what it was. Matt Cardona, you can see that he is really enthusiastic to be there, and that he's got a new lease of life on him compared to what he had when he was in WWE the last few years. He's so much thickened out. He's bulked out shape. He's got into probably the best shape of his career. He was never like the most spectacular move guy, but everything he does looks good. And it's amazing in AEW. People, when they say about they're a smaller roster, Matt Cardona looked a giant in this match. You see Evil Uno and you think that, oh, he's like the big, round, chubby, fat guy or whatever. He's so small. Like, honestly, I'm going to just find out. Evil Uno, let's find out the statistics. Evil Uno is 5'11", so he's not like the smallest, but he looked so small. Matt Cardona next to him, and yeah, like 400 pounds between him and Grayson. That's not much. He's just looks a bit out of shape. He's in a gimp mask. I mean, what more really can I say? Matt Cardona, let's have a look. 6'2", but like the size of him, he absolutely dwarfed some of these guys. So I even question then. Evil Uno 5'10", 5'11", no. But anyway, Colt Cabana took the W, and then Brody Lee wasn't too happy. Brody Lee literally just won the TNT title from Cody. There was the whole attack on Cody and Arn Anderson afterwards, and even on Brandy Rhodes, which really made this match the match for Dustin Rhodes. Obviously, Matt Cardona has been pumped up as Cody's friend. QT Marshall, he's there. We know he's Cody's friend, and yeah, he's all right. He's nothing spectacular. But Scorpio Sky was perhaps the addition to this match. So Scorpio Sky is always very, very good. I like the fact that he's got his own entrance theme now because it makes it seem like they're going to do something with him, which they should. Dustin getting the win, that was very good. And then they obviously announced that Dustin will get the shot at Brody Lee for the TNT Championship. And now we understand the purpose of the result. That obviously Cody lost to Brody Lee. Brody's team then had a loss at the hands of Dustin, which is just giving Dustin a little bit of steam so that then he seems like a threat to Brody Lee, but he's just going to lose this Wednesday, and that will probably be the end of it. I really hope they don't end up doing something where Dustin joins the Dark Order. But, see, the thing with the Dark Order is generally unliked as the storyline has been and how much it's fallen flat on its face over and over again. I would say that there is potential where if there was some massive reveal that, oh my god, Dustin is in the Dark Order and he had infiltrated, and well, he's not infiltrated, he is part of the family, but he somehow got to the upper echelons of the Elite and of the All Elite Wrestling organisation, and really he's part of the Dark Order. But so what? So what? They're like a bad organisation. Anyone can be part of the Dark Order, except for there's no one who's ever questioned, are they perhaps Dark Order? It's just not that great. We then got Omega and Page, the Elite, or well, former Elite in the case of Adam Page, because he was kicked out by the Young Bucks a week ago, losing the tag titles against FTR. Now, thank God, Kenny Omega and Adam Page, great. They're great as a team, but they're a mismatched team. Kenny Omega should be in the World Championship picture, and Adam Page was in the World Championship picture until it fell flat, and they need to move both of them into being singles competitors. FTR, now they've got the tag titles, now they can build up and they can defeat everyone for a few months until Double or Nothing next year, when they can take on the Young Bucks. That should be the booking of this. FTR versus Young Bucks, Double or Nothing, in front of 10 or 20,000 people. That's what they need to build all this up to, no doubt. Good match overall. Maybe it was a little bit of a long match, but just looking at it, was half an hour, and it did feel like half an hour. But it was a classic match for FTR, really making a statement for winning the World Tag Team Championship. So there's nothing wrong. Like later on, not that they release DVDs probably anymore, but when they put out like the best of FTR, this will go down as this is the first time they won the Tag Team Championship, and it was a match befitting of that. Then the penultimate match on the card, we have Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy defeating Chris Jericho. Wow. So this was the rubber match. They've won a match apiece, and it was a Mimosa Mayhem match. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not even really sure what a mimosa is. It's some sort of drink. It's got orange juice in it, and it's just basically, this meant that you could win by pin, but that would have made no sense. You could win by submission, but that would have made no sense, because the other way, the extra way of winning this match, is you have to dump your opponent into these vats of samosa. That would be a different match. Mimosa. Which basically meant it was like a battle royal. So they just had to dump someone over the top rope into the mimosa. And it felt a really flat match. It was only 15 minutes, but it felt really long to me watching it. All of the nearly goings in, their feet just going in. Now, there was the bit where Orange Cassidy's face was perhaps going in a little bit, and his hair was going in, and is he going to go in? And you'd have thought they were going into lava. It was just like, there was nothing. So what if they go in there? Unless they were trying to drown them in it, then it really didn't add too much to this match. And Jericho going in at the end, seeming like he was out cold. He wasn't out cold. Was he just laying there with his eyes shut out of humiliation? Why didn't he just instantly get out of the kiddie pool? It was silly. And then lastly, we had John Muxley against MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, with Wardlow on the outside. And it was a good match. It was a good match. Again, though, I feel like there needed to be an audience there. MJF is really good, but his style of wrestling, if he's not getting a load of heat from the audience, then it feels a little bit flatter, just because he is a character that needs an audience to react to him. But that being said, when he went against what's his name, Cody, and I think Cody's neck tattoo literally ruined their match a few months ago. I think it was at Revolution, because it was so distracting that people didn't respond, but people were a bit flat then. And this felt a tiny bit flat, but it was a good match, good back and forth match. Classic style, Moxley doing more of his brawling, Steve Austin style wrestling, which, yeah, he is meant to be their Steve Austin, we all know it. And the ending came a bit abruptly. Now, obviously, there was this whole Dynamite, Diamond Ring, Diamond Dallas Page thing, whatever it was. And to me, that was always stupid, because it was basically like they said, this is the winner of it in 2020 or 2019. And MJF won it, but it's just this tiny little pinky ring. It's not like a knuckle duster. It's not really going to knock you out or do any more damage than just a regular punch. So to me, it was a bit of because it's not really visual either. So he's got this ring on his pinky or in his ring finger or whatever, and he hits people with it. To me, that's not a knockout blow. Not really. And Wardlow tries to throw it to MJF. MJF doesn't catch it. He's later blamed Wardlow, which to me is just silly. He shouldn't do that. They should just keep those two together, because why have MJF turn on him like he turned on Cody? If it was up to me, he wouldn't have turned on Cody even yet. I'd have kept that going for 2 years. 2 years, because imagine if Cody turns heel and joins FTR, is a four horseman group. MJF could have been part of that. Now, maybe there's a way of them still being able to do that, but if MJF, is now lost against Moxley, and then Cody turns heel, says, I can have a world title shot, it was only me that said that, and then he wins the world championship from Moxley, where does that leave MJF? Because MJF can't then turn face to go against Cody. So it perhaps would have made sense if MJF had beat Moxley for the world title, and then Cody beats MJF for the world title, because there may be some logic to the storyline there that Cody... does that even work? Because why is he breaking his rule if he's still the face? Anyway, I'm thinking out loud. So yeah, it was a little bit of an abrupt ending. I think he won it with a paradigm shift that he just surprise got because of Wardlow being there. And it's like, that was cheating, and it's like, well, you were cheating. So they might be able to have another match later. But again, with Lance Archer being put in the position of getting a world title shot, it looks once again like MJF is just someone they fed to Muxley, and then they'll feed the next person to Muxley. And yeah, I wonder how long Muxley will keep it. But that was All Elite Wrestling's All Out. Guys, on a personal note, I'll say it feels so good to be doing this podcast. I'm going to be doing a lot more podcasts a lot more frequently. I love doing these podcasts. You're going to hear a lot more of my voice. Obviously, for anyone that's been following Extreme Improv, if you haven't been, then do check it out. There's so much good stuff that we're doing at the moment. We've been doing our live streams, which have been our comedy shows. Last month we ran a improv comedy festival, the Extreme Improv Extremed World Championship. I'm going to say that there's some new stuff going to be coming for Superkick Mania soon. I said that on my last podcast, but I've literally been working on it the last couple of days. Going to be some stuff that, you know, mixes things up a little bit. There's gonna be more episodes of this more frequently. Just like, even if they're shorter episodes, just to react to stuff. That'll be great. But also, there's all of the other things we do. If you've never seen an Extreme Improv show, you should check it out. We often do stuff that's wrestling related on there. Where we'll do impressions of wrestlers or scenes about wrestlers or just anything else. I know wrestling fans like their wrestling, but, you know, tell me what you do and don't like, because we do stuff about all sorts of pop culture things, whether it's Star Wars or Harry Potter or video games or Jurassic Park or Back to the Future or, you know, Fortnite or football or MMA, you know, the royal family. We'll do scenes and stuff. It's all comedy. It's all about all of these things. It can be anything. And if wrestling fans listen, which they frequently do, then we often get wrestling related suggestions to work with. Also, we're going to have, earlier today I recorded a new episode of the Games Monster podcast, so if you're a fan of video games, check that out. And then there's the Mega Movie podcast, so if you're into your movies, then check that out. Hit the subscribe on whichever your favourite podcast platform is. You're going to definitely be hearing a lot more from me and some other people soon, because there's a ridiculous amount of exciting stuff coming up. Things I'd say though, so if you enjoy this and you're listening to it on a podcast app, you could also listen to it on YouTube. So if you go over to youtube.com/Extreme Improv and you hit that subscribe button, that would make my day, because we're trying to build up everything there. We're trying to get things going so that I would love this to be like a full-time thing. There's been the pandemic, and just being able to discover doing streams and doing online shows and streaming video games and doing podcasts. I mean, the streams have kind of overtaken the podcasts, which is crazy. I could have been doing a lot more podcasts, but it's now just finding that balance, and there's going to be a lot more. So do check this out. I'll stop rattling on. But if you could do one thing for me today, go over to youtube.com/Extreme Improv. Give us a subscribe. Costs you absolutely nothing. And we're going to have another Superkick Mania Pro Wrestling podcast for you very, very soon. They're going to come up several times in a week. How's that for a statement? So, right then. I'm going to wrap things up. My name is David Postansky. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at David Postansky. Superkick Pro Mania podcast has its own Twitter account on the old Twitter. And then there is the Extreme Improv, which will always give the links to all of the other podcasts and stuff anyway, including Superkick Mania. So just Extreme Improv on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch and YouTube. So go and see what we've got coming up. Until next time, bye for now and stay super kicked.